So, I have to adjust this. So, there we go. All right. So, oh man. So, thank you for the care package, fam, that you all sent me. The tripod is a blessing. It's a nice, sturdy tripod. It was easy to assemble. And that way I don't have to hold the camera and worry about the shake from the Parkinson's, you know. So this morning was rough. This morning was rough. But the good Lord blessed in spite of everything. So, and I mean, he blessed. It says that he keeps those that are on their sick bed. You know, the inference being that he keeps us from getting any worse. Because there's always worse. So, want to give a shout out to all of the mothers. Happy Mother's Day. Especially all of the ladies, the strong ladies that are, you know, they haven't aborted their child and they're raising that child all by themselves because some guy, you know, tricked her and told her that he was her man and he's gonna be there forever. And he wanted to. He's like, come on, baby. You know why? Why do we need birth control if I'm your man? And then he gets a lady pregnant. And then after he finds out that she's pregnant, he's like, well, you got to go handle your business. You know. And then the mother is like, well, girl, don't you bring a baby back in my house because I already raised my children. I'm not raising yours. And truth be told, there are a lot of grandparents that are raising their kids' children. You know, they're parenting 2.0. So my hat's off to them too. And regardless of how bad things get, there are a lot of strong, good people left in this country. And I thank God for you. I thank God for you. But the people that are standing outside of a clinic yelling at these young girls that on top of everything else that they're going to go to hell, shame on you. You should be yelling at the girl, hey, miss, can I help you with some gasoline? Or can I help you with a car? Or can I help you with some rent money or food money or place to stay or something like that, or child care, you know, rather than putting a sign up in front of their face saying on top of losing their family and losing their baby daddy, they always say fiance. They always say fiance, but the shame is that the guy, you know, has no intention of making good on the responsibilities that God gave him, to be the head of his household. And the shame is that people don't understand that what God has for you is for you. And if you just take some time, get in your prayer closet, get that relationship with God through Jesus Christ, that he will take care of you. Believe me, I've been through so much, I firmly believe that now. I gotta change my... It's hard being bedridden. It's hard being bedridden because after a while, the body just gets tired of lying on this side or lying on your back, or, it's not easy. And I thank God for my fam. But happy Mother's Day to all of you out there. And thank God for my fam. And thank you for my supporters. So I wasn't really in the condition this morning to even fix myself something to eat. So a few minutes ago, I had a package of the Doritos that you sent me with a little bit of guacamole. And that was just enough to tide me over for right now. When you get older and your digestive system slows down, you get to the point where one day you'll eat and then the next day you don't want to eat, because it takes that long for the system to process everything. So it used to amaze me, not to be crude, but when I worked at the nursing home, I worked in all the departments. I had a global badge. I could work janitorial, I could assist on the floor, I could work in the laundry, and I saved the nursing home about a third of the cost on their laundry bill by the way I was running the department. And my boss said, you're going to need to have a forklift to cash your paycheck this week. And I was expecting a bonus or something. It was $273, my total pay for actually for the 2 weeks of working at the nursing home. He said I need a forklift to or have somebody help me lift my paycheck up, whatever he said. It was $273. I worked for one company, for a trash company, and I got salary, expenses, gasoline, a bonus, money for sales, company car. And one day my boss came and he put a check for $1,500 on my desk. And he said, thank you. And I didn't do you don't have to do that stuff. I was like, shoom, because that's the way it is with God's blessing. God gives you favor with somebody. I remember when I was a kid, I worked for this other family-owned trash company, and they had a party at the boss's house. And the cool thing about his house was when you drove up on it, it was very austere. Just a house and a lawn no bushes or anything, no landscaping. And the boss had lived there for years and years in a bad neighborhood. But when you got inside the house, it was like being inside of a gift box. Beautiful wallpaper and furniture and stuff. And being very precocious, I asked him, I said, well, Irv, how come you didn't do anything with the outside so much, treading lightly? He said, well, you don't want to bring attention to yourself, and that way you get ROBBED'd. But if you leave the house real plain on the outside, people will leave it alone. I thought that was very brilliant. So, in any case, they had this wonderful seafood salad. And I'm surprised they had it because it wasn't kosher. And so when the boss's wife wanted to generously give me an unopened tin of the stuff from the catering company, and that little tin of seafood was like $20. And I told her, oh no, I couldn't do. She was like, shoom. She took it back and she's like, that's okay. She wasn't anybody's fool. And she wasn't going to do the, oh, I insist you take it routine. So I actually respected her a lot for that. I mean, she wasn't being cheap or anything. She offered, and she's not going to give something to somebody who might not appreciate it. But believe me, it was the most delicious seafood salad I think I've ever had in my life, even to this day. And I live down at the beach in Lewis, Delaware. So some people say Lewes, but it's actually Lewis. I lived right along the courtyard where they brought the real big time criminals to be arraigned. And a lot of them got life in prison or the death sentence. I mean, we're talking big time criminals. And behind my house was a dirt track that the cars would race around in the mud. The house was very nice, though. The neighborhood was nice. It was like going back 40 years in time. They actually call it Slower Delaware. And my sister-in-law, my brother, and I rolled into town. She had a Corvair convertible, which looked like a European car. People back then didn't understand what a Corvair was. Beautiful little Corvair. I had an Olds Tornado, which was the wrong car for a small town, because that car only got 8 miles per gallon. It was very thirsty and very expensive to maintain. And it was one of the first things that I got rid of, or had to get rid of, as I moved down there and tried to start my own company. And it turned out that the other people in the trash business went behind my back. They all made deals with each other outside of the guy from Washington. They didn't like that I was an outsider. So I had to leave Delaware and come back to Maryland. Long story short. That and the fact that one of the companies put a contract out on me because I had a sales job with one of the mob-owned companies up in northern Delaware. And I did everything above board, but our sales between the lady and I the two salespeople, the sales were so good that the other company figured the only way to stop us was to put a contract out on us. And when I found out there was a contract on me, and believe me, fam, it happens where somebody gets angry and the other person winds up packed in a garbage truck. So I was aware of that, and I left Delaware at 11 o'clock at night. And then finally, the guy who put the contract out on me passed away. But I've never been back to Delaware. I had the contract with the prison, and the one company gave me a Datsun 280Z as my company car. And the weird thing was on the left side it said Nissan, on the right side of the car it said Datsun. And so when I drove into the prison to talk to the warden, he was one of those Tea Party people. He didn't like the foreign car. And so he said that they might find something in the trunk of the car and I might have to stay. And believe me, when they opened up those folding steel doors to let me out, and they didn't open them up all the way, they were kind of smart alecky to where I had to barely squeeze the car out of the prison. I was never happier to leave any place. So I used to visit prisons on as part of a ministry, outreach. And I went to the prison up in Hagerstown, and I wasn't feeling particularly well, and the prison didn't have any air conditioning. And I told the guy, I said, look, I gotta peel out because, I was getting too overheated. And when I left that prison, they did the same thing. They barely opened up the gates. And I literally had to turn sideways and squeeze out of the gates to leave. And then as I was going to the parking lot, some of the police officers were saying how they were going to have to impound my car and all this other stuff because there was a crack in the windshield. So I never went back there either. You're trying to do something good, something nice. And I really feel sorry for people in prison in this respect, because there are others that feel that it gives them carte blanche to make these people pay. And so they do whatever they can to make the person miserable. Like instead of serving his food nicely on a tray, if the kitchen help is ticked off at you, sometimes they'll take your food and ball it up into a disgusting mess and plop it on the tray, and that's it. You either eat it or you don't. Mean-spirited stuff like that. I worked with a girl at one trash company, and she was an executive secretary. And she was cold-hearted as a shark. And she had these eyes that were just dead looking, that would look at you. Just dead. And in any case, she trained to be a prison guard because she wanted to stop being an executive secretary with all the perks, working for one of the most prestigious companies in Washington, to become a prison guard. And I can guarantee you that when she came on shift, she probably made a great many people miserable because she was a mean person. I would open the door for her at work, and she would just stand there and not go through the door. So I went through the door, turned around and held it. She just stood there. And that was her way of saying, don't open the door for me. So fine. After that, I would go about my business and not have anything to do with her. Bought her a going away cake. Never got thank you, kiss my butt, go to hell out of the girl. As a matter of fact, the girl that was really sweet in the office, and I wish to God the girl had asked me for advice. She was in accounts receivables. Sweetest young girl in the world. And in any case, what she did was, rather than collect the money by the amount of money owed, she went alphabetically collecting the money. So, for example, instead of working on an account that owed the company $40,000, she was dealing with people that owed the company $40 and $50, the residential accounts. And so after a couple months, it dried the company's money up. And the boss was like, we don't have any operating money. What's going on here? And then the truth came to light that the girl had gone through the accounts alphabetically instead of monetarily, and she dried the company's funds up. And so she got fired, and she went home and took a bunch of sleeping pills and filled the bathtub up and slipped under the water. And she had a young daughter. And I was just heartbroken. But the thing was, I was only one of 3 Caucasians in the company, and I wasn't invited to the funeral, even though I was the girl's best friend in the office. And I wish I had asked her in retrospect how she was doing and kind of stuck my nose into her business to help her along, but it didn't occur to me. I thought she had everything covered. But the one lady in the office that had actually gotten her fired and everything went to her funeral. And I told the girl, I said, Holly, of all the people going to this girl's funeral, I said, I'm surprised, because she said out of all of the staff in the company that you were the one that ground on her and made life miserable. And the girl said, you better not say anything more, or I'm going to get you fired, go to HR and complain that you had the nerve to say that to me. But it was true. I was just shocked. And the girl and I got along, the wicked girl. We would go out and we would be in a vehicle together. And she even had her personal car set with the seat where I liked the setting. But then the second we would come through the front door of the business, she would say real loud, well, Will, why didn't you get this account done? And why didn't you get that collected? And why didn't you get this done? For everybody in the company to hear. And they had a Shark Tank glass conference room. And one day, my boss, I was working on a recycling truck. And my boss said he wanted me to go up front and cover reception. No problem. So I went past the locker room, changed into a suit, a nice watch, everything, beautiful tie. Sat at the reception desk, taking calls and catching up on work that others had missed. And people were coming out. You'd hear the door would open to the Shark Tank, and people would be screaming and crying and pounding on the desk and everything. And then the door would close. And then another person would say, well, I quit. I'm out of here. And, to heck with you all. And come out of the Shark Tank crying. And I was looking over at the Shark Tank like, wow. But they did it to me. They called me in 2 weeks before Christmas and said that they were giving my position in the company car and everything to this real mean-spirited girl. And so they were expecting that I would get upset, is what the deal was, because the whole company, the whole staff was there around the, hey, Amy, how you doing? The whole staff was around the conference table. And my boss always let this one lady do his dirty work. So they told me that they were releasing me from this one company in the group. And if I wanted, I could go over to the other company. So what I did was, before I left, I had my green company car detailed, waxed, shampooed. I had new brakes put on the car, Uniroyal run flat tires, the best of everything. I took my uniforms, which didn't match anymore because I was going to another company. I had them cleaned and wrapped in plastic and put on the conference table. And that's the way I left the company. So they took my company car around back and they parked it. The reason being was the girl said that since the car had like 30 or 40,000 miles on it, she wanted a new company car and that this car wasn't adequate. So they told the girl, well, you drive your family car and we'll give you a stipend for gas. And that really got on her nerves because at that point, they didn't offer her a company car. So they parked my car around back. And one of the garbage trucks, I think maybe on purpose, backed up into it and crushed it up like a Coke can. And so when the men got in touch with me, they said, well, God don't love ugly, because they were for me. They knew I'd gotten a raw deal. So I went back to Fox Chevrolet in Laurel, where they had detailed my other car. And I told them, I said, I want a white car that's going to look like a company car. I want a real plain white car that looks like a supervisor's car, and it won't get me in trouble in my home in South Baltimore. Because if you had a real ritzy car in my neighborhood, you get the hubcaps or the wheels and the battery stolen and all that. So I got the lowest Chevrolet Cavalier, a white Cavalier, crappy plastic hubcaps, roll down windows, the bottom of the line. And the dealership got me because I put $5,000 down on the car. Old people, my generation, what you do is you come home from work, you put $20 or $50 a week in a coffee can, and you put it right out in the open in the kitchen. Because my landlord was stealing from me. He was going into my bedroom and he was going through the drawers, my dresser drawers, and I would throw my change in the drawer, maybe a $5 or $10 bill. The next day it would be gone, and my neighbors told me that the landlord was going in my apartment. And I knew that because I would put the seat down all the way on the toilet, and I would come home and the seat would be up on the toilet. So I knew that he had used my bathroom on top of everything else. So I took my coffee can to the Chevy dealership in Laurel, put $5,000 down, and I was in a hurry to pick the car up. I just pointed out a white Cavalier. I said, that one's fine. You know, I wish I had picked a Malibu, but I picked the Cavalier because of tight city parking. So I took everything into consideration. And, hey, Billy, how are you? So, in any case, what they did was very clever. They took two purchase orders and put on top of each other. So I thought that I was signing multiple copies of the same thing. But long story short, the bottom purchase order was for $31,000 for a 2004 Chevy Cavalier is what it cost me. $31,000. And so when I noticed what they had done, I asked about it, and I was told there's nothing I could do legally. They got me, and they had the balls to ask me to buy another car from them after they had cheated me. So what I learned is whenever you sign a contractual agreement, you want to make sure you sign it with a blue pen. That way, when you sign it, you know, they can't put a carbon paper under it or anything. And you know that everything that's in blue, that you read and you signed it, and you can prove it. Because if they put carbon under it with other copies, and you write on the top copy, they can hold you to whatever, you know, is signed on the bottom copies, which is what they did, you know. And probably after screwing over a child of God, they probably didn't have another lucky day in their life, you know. But in any case, I hope you all keep me in prayer, because today has been a rough day of just trying to take the next breath, I can tell you. But in any case, I bought the white Cavalier. I went to the other company and parked next to the other white company cars. I didn't lie to them. I didn't tell them that it was a company car, but I let everybody assume that it was a company car. So I didn't tip my hand. But the funny thing was one of the drivers had worked with me at another company, and there was some animosity, and he didn't like me. So when he cut the grass in front of the office, which was like an acre of this real tall, sticky grass, he had the lawnmower pointing at my car. So every time he would go past my car with the lawnmower, it would blow the rocks and the dirt and the grass all over my brand new car. And so when I got around to washing the car finally, the acid in the grass had actually ruined the paint on the car, and it looked like my car was made out of bamboo, that there was markings in the paint from the grass. You know how a bird will crap on your car, and if you don't wash it off right away, it eats the paint up. But the guy thought that was the most clever, funniest thing in the world to vandalize my new car. And I stayed there for about a year and a half. And the boss had a quirky thing. He would call me to his office, And I would come in and stand in front of his desk, and he would say, I didn't tell you to come in the room. He said, when I call you, you come to the office door, and then you wait for me to beckon you in. He said, beckon. So I said, I'll tell you this, why didn't you beckon this and get somebody else? I had like $10,000 in the bank. And I said, why don't you beckon this? Because I'm not coming. You call me the office and you want me to stand outside the door, and then you're going to beckon me in. You know, I said, I'm not into the games, so you can have all that. I walked out, you know, we stayed in touch and all that. The guy knew he was a jerk and he was an alcoholic. He drank like a fish. And he would tell me, you know, at quitting time, he would say, well, I'm having dinner with Jim tonight, meaning Jim Beam, you know, the liquor. And I told him, I said, well, Cordell, you know what Jim's favorite food is? He said, no, I don't. I said, it's liver. And someday it's going to be your liver. But he never straightened up as far as I knew, you know. And eventually I would have to go over from the other company and interact with him, because the other company fired the girl and hired me back because nobody could stand her. So I went from a green company car to a white car to green again. Hey, Yellow, how you doing? Listen, I'm going to have to go because I have to use my stimulator to stimulate my circulation. When I talk for a while, my blood oxygen goes down and down and down. And so I got to do a couple things to try and rev the body back up. It's just one of those things when you're older than God, and you have to watch every little thing that you eat and drink and do. And when I get off camera, I have to rub my arms and squinch my fingers and rub my legs down and use infrared heat on my legs to get the circulation going again. It's something that I got to do every so often. Wheelchair Dan goes through the same thing. I tried to explain it to him what's going on. He has times when he's on the web in his wheelchair actually crying from the pain. It's a god-awful way to try and survive. My mother told me when I was young, she said, if you live till you're old enough, you have to literally concentrate on the next breath. But I love you all. God loves you more. Keep me in prayer. Poppity Pops out.